Clap on,
whole
clap
5
off,
and
the
6
clapper.
seconds of it.
All right.
Clap on, clap off, clap on, clap off, the clapper.
Just plug in the clapper to any... That's the intro.
Good. Okay, great.
All right. Here we go. Hi, friends. Welcome to Red Dead Radio, the Red Dead Redemption podcast. I'm your host, Jared Petty, and as always, we're going straight to the wild, wild guest.
We're going straight to the wild, wild guest. We're going straight to the wild, wild guest. Yeah!
Guest or guest star, or again, Stockard Channing Season 2 West Wing?
There it
I
is.
don't know.
Special guest appearance.
I feel like at this point we're a Hydra. We're the last two heads of a Hydra, and the rest just haven't grown back. Maybe is that what it is? Is that how it works?
No. I think we're just a rotating cast where it's just like I just show up in every episode.
Yeah, well, I love that.
It's like Newman when he did that run on Seinfeld, like season 4 or 5, where like he would just always fucking be there.
He's always on the show, yeah.
But it was always guest starring Wayne Knight.
Yeah, I always feel bad for like Amber Besson on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who gets in the credits in one episode. Like, and she's finally a credited cast member after having been on the show for like 2 years, and she's dead.
Yeah,
like she gets a hole blown through her chest that same episode.
Oh,
that's just rough. Oh,
rip.
I love Tara. Tara was good.
I actually don't know who you're talking about.
Oh,
I never watched Buffy.
Oh, we got to fix that.
Are we not friends anymore?
No, of course we're friends, but there are episodes of Buffy that are well worth your time.
I've seen the musical episode once because I went to theater college, and then I've seen like a handful of other episodes when I was a child watching CW.
The brilliance of the theater episode is unfortunately probably lost if you haven't been watching for a year.
Well, because it's super lost.
Yeah, what it does is it ties up about 10 different dangling plot strings in 44 minutes using music, and it's very clever. It's very smart how they did it, actually. But this is not BuffyCast. That's right. This is Red Dead Radio.
Let's just restart this whole thing over again.
Nonsense. Here we go. Red Dead Radio, the Red Dead Redemption podcast. And today, we're talking about everything you want to know. Everything you need to know.
All the stuff.
About Red Dead Redemption, because Red Dead Redemption is about to come out.
I know, it's like 2-3 weeks away at this point.
Yeah, and if you've been following us here, you know that we've had hands-on time with the game. John Ryan has barely gotten to talk about the fact you got to see the first 5 hours.
I did, yeah. It was super cool. There was a lot in that 5 hours to unpack.
Yeah, it was kind of rad. We had, and some of that stuff's over at IGN now. You can
check out a ton of our preview coverage over on IGN. I wrote a piece for it. Ryan wrote a piece for it. Our friends over in IGN UK wrote some stuff for it. You can absolutely go check out everything you possibly would ever need to know about the first 5 hours of Red Dead Redemption 2, if you are so inclined to learn that information before the game comes out, over at IGN.com.
Yep, and if you want to hear a story spoiler-free version of that here on the Red Dead Radio, you can go back. I was talking to a couple of fellows over from GameSpot that saw that same demo. Yep, you know what? We're all friends here.
It's true. I love those guys.
Yep. So Mike Mahardy, Jake Decker, and I sat down last week and checked that out. But that's enough of me talking about what you could be watching besides this, because
you're watching this.
You're watching this, and what we're going to do, I think fairly concisely, is that never happens.
No, come on now. We're going to be here for 3 hours.
Right, but what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and talk about everything you really need to know leading into the game. We're going to start with the very basic stuff and work our way out and up on that, and that's why we have Red expert John Ryan here. I think you know more about Red Dead Redemption than anybody I know outside of Rockstar. And I really do believe that is when they put it on his tombstone, it's going to be John Ryan.
God, I hope not. I mean,
he knew a lot about Red Dead.
I knew a lot about this one cowboy video game in the late 2010s.
Exactly, and this other one that was well, you knew about the one that came before too.
In the early 2010s.
So them 2 cowboy games, and even that a little bit that Revolver. All right. Enough of that. Let's start here. When's that game coming out, John Ryan?
That'd be October 26th. That will be 2 weeks from this coming Friday.
Oh, my gosh.
Or the 25th if you're on Australia time.
It seems like only yesterday that it was 2016.
No, that seems like forever ago. Where have you been the last 2 years?
And we were watching the reveal trailer to this game. Remember the very clever reveal poster? First just the red, and then the figures off in the distance, and then finally the title. I loved how they did that.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat. I really loved the first proper trailer we got for it though, when it was just the world itself, and then you sort of had a little bit of hints toward the story and the characters with Arthur's voiceover, like sort of around some of the more visceral imagery, and then you get that great shot of the whole gang sort of riding down and across the plains. Like, it was really good.
It was freaking rad. I love that trailer. Yeah, that was the beginning of my whole kind of obsession with the idea that the West is a character in this game, sort of, you know, Serenity and Firefly style, and I still hold to that. The more I've seen, the more I lean into that.
Oh, yeah.
But I really enjoyed that teaser, and then because Rockstar takes their time, there were some, hey, when's this game going to come out? Da-da-da-da-da-da. We've had 2 gameplay trailers. Then we've seen both of those now, and both of them have been illuminating. We've also had these little drops in between with things like, hey, here's some stuff about wildlife.
Yeah, here are the locations that you can potentially visit, should you so choose.
Exactly. Those locations including?
Locations including Saint Denis, the New Orleans allegory, a little town called Rhodes, which I believe is, what the hell is it called? It's in an area called, I think, Strawberry, which I assume is probably going to be something along the lines of Kentucky.
Okay.
And then
Strawberry.
Getting a little bit of strawberry to you. So I think Lemoyne is the state. It's like the state of Louisiana, basically.
Yeah, okay, so Lemoyne's the state.
Well, because we have New Hanover, which is the Heartlands, which is where Valentine is, which is where we spent the better part of our playable demo, where we saw the first time we ever saw the game back in spring was our demo there was taking place in Valentine, in this place, New Hanover. And it's like sort of like the Heartlands of America, like a lot of cattle towns, a lot of grass, a lot of farmland, sort of rich, thick forests.
Yeah.
And then you've got... My understanding is Lemoyne being a little, I want to say it's the Lemoyne territory, down towards like Saint Denis and Rhodes, which is a little more southern as you think of it.
Yeah, okay, maybe that Arkansas kind of Louisiana, Texas sort of mixing area there. Yeah, the area that was known during the Civil War is the Trans-Mississippi, where some of the more brutal action of the Civil War took place, and a lot of the beginnings of what you see as gang culture in the Old West really began.
Interesting.
A lot of those guys that ended up, Jesse Jameses and such that we think of, got their beginning in that guerrilla war that went on in the Trans-Mississippi between the Union and the Confederates.
Anytime we talk about the Civil War, I'm just always like, that's fucking horrible. But that's also fascinating, in addition to being fucking horrible.
No, they were people that had learned to be guerrilla fighters, and after the war, they had a very particular set of skills in, say, things like, you know, small raiding cavalry tactics and little bands that were self-dependent.
I think it's interesting because I don't know how far you might have gotten into it with the gang from GameSpot, but we sort of see a little bit of that potentially in this character of Micah, who is a huge douche nozzle. But, well, no, I mean, like, you know, I don't know for sure, but, like, the sense that I got from him in my time with the game, like, during the first 5 hours and during the bit that you played, I'm sure, as well, I think he is very much a holdover from the days of the Civil War. Like, he strikes me as, whether or not he was actively part of the Confederacy or not, I think he's spent a good deal of time with folk like that.
The Reconstruction and post-Reconstruction periods of America, and this game really kind of enters into that post-Reconstruction Southwest. That was a rough time. It was a time where cultural norms and cultural values were really at odds with any kind of conventional ethics as we understand them today, where the value of human life based on the color of your skin or where you grew up could simply be regarded quite openly and plainly as subhuman. I mean, if you read newspaper accounts of the way Native Americans were written about in the 1870s, for example, you read it now and you think it's so cartoonishly evil and racist that it's almost unthinkable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really is. Like, you look at any historical journals, like even ones that would be, you know, touted by some folks as the good version. Like, even those are, like, despicable. And just, like, how could you possibly think this about another human being?
And there were dissenting voices. There were always dissenting voices. I remember I had this, I used to have this a magazine article I just loved called The Old World's Peculiar Institution, which was a collection of ancient writings, like going back to BC.
Interesting.
That were all anti-slavery writings.
Great.
From thousands of years ago, and people who looked at it, even then, when it's completely normalized within portions of the society that had more, you know, swords than anybody else,
right?
And we're saying this is just wrong, and how long it took to get from this is just wrong in the eyes of a few to, oh my God, maybe we should reconstruct society so that human beings are treated like humans.
No way.
I know.
I would very much like to read these old school woke papers.
Indeed, they are. But getting back to Red Dead Redemption. So,
I think this is very much on topic with Red Dead Redemption.
Okay, it is very on topic, but I've tried to be careful. We were story spoiler free last week, and I
very much intend to keep it that way.
We are, yeah. You don't need to be afraid. We're not going to ruin anything for you. But Micah, kind of a jerk, or very much.
Yeah,
a jerk.
I mean, again, like I think I've said this about him before we played the game, before we'd seen a whole lot of it. Really, besides the first demo that I'd seen or the first couple of story trailers, like I don't really trust him at all.
Yeah,
and I especially don't now.
Yeah.
Not because there's any particular events that happened during the chunk of the game that I saw and that I played through, but I just don't get a good vibe from him, man. I don't know.
Well, this is a collection of people that some are going to be more ethically relatable than others, but ultimately this is a group of people that kills people to get what they want.
Yeah.
And that right there is a threshold that of outside of maybe what we consider civility that does lead to some very colorful personalities, put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and we know that there are going to be a lot of them that you'll be interacting with very regularly.
Some of those folks are. No, we're not going to go through all 24 gang members. We've already done that before. I don't think everybody needs. This is what you need to know. Who you need to know. You need to know Arthur Morgan, our protagonist. The GameSpot guys were in love with him.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I think there was a contingent of folk who were not particularly sold on him when he was first introduced, like as the new anti-hero of the franchise. I feel like I found him super interesting from the get-go, and now that I've had the chance to spend time as him and more time with him, like I'm super into Arthur as a protagonist.
Do you feel able to empathize with him even at his most despicable?
I absolutely do, and I think what's really interesting, and again, on that line of everything you need to know, is like we've talked a lot about how Arthur as a character is going to differ from player to player.
Yeah.
Because you do have the choice. You do have the opportunity to make choices throughout this game. Like, your Arthur is very different than my Arthur. Like, there was a part in the demo that I think you saw as well, where you finish a train robbery and you've got some of the crew left from the train.
Yeah, I saw
this. Now, Dutch essentially says to you, you can do whatever you want with them. You can let them live or you can execute them. No witnesses is always good, but also I understand if you don't want to get your hands too dirty.
Yeah.
And, you make that choice, like, I don't know. What's your inclination? Because mine, honestly, like I want to let these dudes live, but also like I don't want no witnesses.
No, I'm a very much let the dudes live. But that's a product of reading. I tend to play white hat in most games anyway, and that's a product of reading too much mythology. I was just rereading, the Prydain books
because bad shit comes back around to you,
and good likewise circles around. If you spare the evil creature and tend to its wounds when it's trying to eat you, then later on you come back much later in life and it saves you in a moment when you're about to die.
Or it beats your sidekick to death with a crowbar.
That can happen too.
Like that's the problem there, and it's I don't trust him not to do that.
I'll just kill him the second time.
See, that's the thing, though, is like there shouldn't have to be a second time.
Oh, see, this is why playing Arthur's going to be a lot of fun.
Right.
Plus, they've written a likable character. One of the things that stood out to me, everything you need to know, here's what you need to know. I keep saying it. I love the writing in Red Dead Redemption. I think the writing is better in this game, and I really enjoy it. I think the dialogue writing it resonated, and when I say better, how about this? I like it more. It resonated more for me. I felt like I was getting... I felt like somehow these characters were both more like gnarly and vicious, but at the same time more sympathetic in some ways than a lot of the folks I get. In Red Dead 1, they're complex characters, but they're sometimes almost parodic.
Well, I think
I saw less of that in this.
Yes, very much so. And I think that they sort of took that to heart in the sense of like Red Dead, the original Red Dead Redemption came out, and it was more subdued than GTA 4 coming off the heels of, I think the one that had come out right before it was the Ballad of Gay Tony. And, like, that is an insane expansion pack to a game, especially just from a character standpoint. And so Red Dead coming out right after it, like, there's sort of, you can see kind of an evolution where it's like you've got Red Dead basically forcibly being more subdued just because of the age in which it's set.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, and then going back to Grand Theft Auto 5 and having a lot of very straightforward satire.
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like if we're going to have a leaning, I think that, I've said this before maybe, Grand Theft Auto is almost pure parody.
Yeah.
And Red Dead Redemption is very thoughtful satire. That might be where I would draw those lines. Now, maybe I'm being too clean on that.
No. I think I would very much agree. Like,
because they have different characters. They have different feels.
Yes. There's not a point in Red Dead Redemption where they're going to have an Old West allegory for Facebook be called Life Invader. Like,
Still my favorite mission in that game.
I think that you're right. It is the difference between parody and satire between the two, because with there are a bunch of great missions. The Talking Dog, I know you love really well. There's not an Old West version of me killing Mark Zuckerberg. Like, there just isn't. Like, and not
Yet.
Sorry, Zuck. Like, no tea, no shade. Like, I think you're cool.
What if you ever get
fine.
Kenneth Branagh from the Wild Wild West? I mean,
Dr. Harlan Lovelace?
Yeah, wow.
With his spider legs? And his deep southern drawl and his weird little mechanical wheelchair.
Why was Kenneth Branagh slumming like that? Why?
Excuse me, sir. He was in a film with his old and good friend Kevin Kline. How dare you?
Again, I love Kevin Kline.
Why
I
is
love
he
Will
slumming
Smith.
like that?
I love Salma Hayek. I love Kenneth Branagh. What are they doing in that movie?
I guarantee that Wild Wild West is a movie that the first draft of the script that they actually got and read was fucking great.
Yeah.
And then the studios were just like, oh, well, we got to do this for the kids. They Batman and Robin did.
And if nothing else, we have Wild Wild West to thank for the superb Drew Hill Cisco track, Wild Wild West, which brought us our
Wild Wild Guest
hook.
It's true.
Let's hear it again right now.
We going straight to the Wild Wild Guest. We going straight to the Wild Wild Guest. Yeah.
There we are.
Good.
All right.
So anyways, thanks, Cisco. That was super rad. Again, still not sentences that I think I'll ever actually say in the course of my life, but I still find myself saying it.
Oh, yeah. One day we're going to hang out with next time Cisco's in town, you and I totally going to get, let's go get hammered with Cisco. I don't know if Cisco drinks, but
I don't know if I'm ready for that. That's a lot of pressure, man.
He's a really nice dude.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But also social anxiety is a really big thing for me, and now I'm really upset.
Hey, man, dude can sing. I'm so jealous of that voice.
Okay.
So silky smooth.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
I would love to have a great R&B voice. I'm talking about Cisco, not you.
Wow, all right.
I mean, I like your voice too, but...
Anyways, enough about my anxiety about potentially hanging out with Cisco. Let's cut all of this.
No, let's head into... All right, so this is the one I can never hold in my head. John Ryan, the real reason you're here right now is because there are 3 different editions of this game I can purchase and a collector's box. And despite the fact that they're not that confusing, there's something wrong with my brain. And I just can't
It's
get them
because
all
you don't
straight.
have to do Wiki's work anymore, Jared.
Is that what...
It's because rote memorization of trivial facts is no longer a function of your
important
everyday.
part of my life.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
The number of button codes I can enter from memory in GTA 5.
Oh, yeah. Those weeks of our lives we spent just punching some in and hoping we got them right, and then eventually we did, and it was so good.
Codes. I love codes. Anyway, please continue.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just going to get my usefulness out of the way so you can kick me off the show.
Whatever.
So we've got a few different editions of the game coming up. If you have yet to pre-order it, if you're holding off, there are a few different bonuses that you can jump onto. There's the standard edition of the game, which, to my knowledge, I think PlayStation 4 gets some exclusive content first. So I think there's a 30-day period where you'll get like an extra weapon, a new outfit, and I think 1 mission maybe.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I'm not totally sure on that one.
Okay, that's right.
Then there's the standard digital pre-order with bonuses for content in single player. Mm-hmm. You get, I believe, a treasure hunting activity. You get 1 extra mission. I think you get a couple of horse types and some weapons.
Yep.
I know you get items that can enhance your abilities. So, like, there are some that you have these cool mechanics called core stats. Basically, your health or your stamina or your deadeye. You have, essentially, the way that it works is you have a core that is full to a certain level. And depending on how full that level is, your pool of it is wrapped around it. So like your health meter, the remaining health that you have is indicated on the outside of this ring, and the overall quality of that health, how fast it will regenerate, is on the inside.
It's a very cool system.
And then you get either... I'm not sure if it's a bonus to how quickly you level up, or if it's a bonus to how long those cores stay full.
Okay.
But in the single player bonus, the standard edition bonuses with single player content, you get upgrades to those cores. Mm-hmm. You also get a talisman and I think 1 other piece of equipment as well that will increase your eagle eye ability, which is that sort of not detective mode.
Yeah.
Basically, like when you go into eagle eye vision, you can see scent trails that'll let you track animals.
Cowboy Batman!
Oh, God, yes. I really hope that there's a pseudo Batman outfit. Like, just give me a cape. I just want a cape.
Well,
please.
we'll get to online, but the inevitable Undead Nightmare Online.
Oh, I would love that.
I
If
think
it's
we're
old,
gonna
but
see
if they just do John Carpenter's Vampires, I'm 100% okay with it.
Okay, can we?
Or Clive Barker's Undying, I guess, for the more Western feel.
This is no longer the Red Dead Redemption podcast. This is now the John Carpenter's Vampire podcast.
Remember that time that he cut that dude in half with his fingernails after he opens the door to a party?
I do remember that time.
That was gross. It screwed me up as a kid.
Remember how they drag that guy? They would throw in and they pull him out with a winch into the sunlight and they burn.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're back to Red Dead Redemption again.
No, I'm still on this. No, we're moving on to Clive Barker's Undying now. I'm sorry, I'm the worst guest ever. So the standard edition comes with a bunch of cool stuff like that. Then, speaking of Red Dead Online, the Ultimate Edition, which is the top tier copy of the game that you can pre-order, that comes with all of the single standard pre-order edition stuffs, and then also a bunch of stuff for Red Dead Online, which was cool because when we didn't really know much about it, and we still don't, but we also have a nice fair bit of knowledge about that now because after a couple weeks ago they first released their first sort of press release about what Red Dead Online will actually be. And
that seems like a great segue. Before we get to the collector's box, let's just go ahead and say, what do we know about Red Dead Online at this point?
Well, I know a great deal about Red Dead Online because I was actually fortunate enough to do QA with the development team working on it, which was super cool.
Zounds! It's almost as if we planned this.
No, wait, did you you son of a bitch.
I know. It's like I know what I'm doing.
I'm never coming back here ever again. So the cool thing about Red Dead Online is that, based on the stuff that we know from the collector's bonuses, we know that we'll all have our own camps. We know that we'll have our own little base of operations. We know that we'll have potentially our own gangs even.
Yeah.
And I think one of the coolest things that we talked about with the devs that they mentioned in our Q&A was that they're really interested and focused on the idea of morality in Red Dead Online.
Cool.
And so I'm curious to see what that looks like for us as players. We know that there's a bit of a revision to the honor system in single player, depending on how you act with people, how you talk to people, but also how you murder people or not murder people. Your honor rating will go up and down. I'm curious to see if we'll have essentially just a very similar version of that in online, or if it's going to be sort of a broader idea where you have people choosing to live a very moral life or a very immoral life, essentially playing cops and robbers. Or I guess sheriffs and outlaws.
Either way.
But I mean, I think that's an interesting idea. Where
I love the idea. I like the idea of I wonder if you're going to be able to identify people. I literally wonder if your hat will get more white or more black, or if there'll be some kind of
I think you'll still be able to wear
in that regard.
Want,
no, but I see like a meter that's like that's. I'm sure that's not.
Yeah.
They're not going for anything that overt. I think.
I'm very curious.
It'll be much more
nuanced
like, because the whole theme of this game is open. I am as excited about Red Dead Online as I am about the core single player campaign, and that's rare for me. I don't play a lot of online games, but I thought GTA Online was a monumental achievement. It was an experiment that accomplished a lot and grew into something truly tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, even in the initial rocky weeks, it was still a phenomenal idea, and conceptually it worked out very well.
Yeah, and what it became a couple of years later in particular is just unbelievable. But what I like to think about is everything that they learned from that they have not been able to retrofit into GTA 5, or that they just saved. They're like, you know what, we could fix this in GTA 5, but why don't we just build it from the ground up in Red Dead Online?
Yeah, of course.
And there's going to be a whole host of quality of life changes and new ideas and complete improvements we never thought of that are going to roll out with this thing.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what they are.
Yeah. I mean, we know that the team is really focused on that idea of they're super honest about the fact that the launch of GTA Online was pretty rocky.
Yeah.
It had its fair share of problems. And I think for them, they really sort of started to find their footing, they say, when they released the heists patch. Which, I mean, if you've played it, it's phenomenal. It is one of the most fun experiences I had playing GTA Online. And I still play GTA Online pretty regularly.
Yeah, you play a lot.
And then, all of the iterations of that on top of that, you look at what they've done with the gun running and the Smuggler's Run updates, and then eventually the second round of heists, the Doomsday heist, with like jetpacks and fucking flying DeLoreans and shit,
and leaning into the crew-oriented stuff that they did, and then how that can manifest as gang stuff.
Right, and like I don't think that we're gonna see a horse turn into a flying stagecoach. I don't think we'll see the flying train from Back to the Future 3, though. I would love to. Rockstar, if you're watching, please put that in Red Dead Online.
What I'm excited about, you mentioned morality. I have wanted forever and ever and ever and ever there to be a Rockstar game outside of Noir that really lets me play as a good guy. And this might there's no reason for them not to do it.
Yeah.
What if there's just as rich a way to be a part of the system as there is to work against it? What if they found a way to make it just as fun to be one of the good guys as it is to be one of the bad?
I think that would be an incredibly smart choice on their front. Like,
That's
because you could still have the concept of camps. Like, I don't think it would be, you wouldn't have like an apartment instead of a camp outside of town. Like, you would just have a camp for marshals, where it's just like, this is a staging ground for the law officers of this region.
Yeah, this is the ranger post.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that would be really, really, really neat. And I just really want to see how it goes.
I like the idea of being able to be with a team of people at a ranger post. I like the idea. Oh, well, I think we broke the set.
No, I think
the set broke us. Yeah, there we are. Oh, the set literally broke. Oh, hey, this is the Pockets Full of Soup logo that Gary made. Hey, thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
One of the super friends. And it just fell off the wall because it was literally taped on. So
great job,
let's
buddy.
stick that down. No problem. I'm making a mess here.
This too.
Oh,
I don't know what that is. I don't know.
You know what that is?
Plug
That's
cover.
one of those plugs. This is the plug that when I rented this apartment, that my old boss, who used to live here, left all these childproof plugs in every plug in the house. We have a lot of plugs in this apartment.
So what was his name?
This guy's name?
Yeah.
His name was Hollander Cooper. And,
sick burn, Hollander. Way to go.
Sick burn indeed. And Hollander just left all these in there, and I have been taking them out for months, and I'm still coming across them.
That is deliciously spiteful.
He's
I love
an evil man.
Good.
A good evil man.
Good.
He's actually a very nice person.
He's like Arthur Morgan. Back to it. See, look at that.
Look at that.
There
We're
we
going
go.
to surround. So that Arthur Morgan. So that's what we know about online. We don't have a date for online yet, right?
We know it's going to go into beta in November
Right.
at some point. My best guess would probably be the middle of the month, maybe towards the end of it. Because one of the other things too that was clearly a reason that GTA Online launched after GTA 5, and why we're seeing a delay between Red Dead Online and Red Dead Redemption 2 single player, is that not only does it give the development team more time to get past the launch of their massive single player game and then be ready for the launch of their massive multiplayer game online, but it also gives us a much better chance to understand the world and to know its landmarks and the intricacies of the mechanics and the systems that we all should be aware of. Like, it gives everybody a relatively level baseline going into it.
Yep.
So it's not that, if you buy your first Call of Duty game and you jump straight into multiplayer, odds are you're probably going to get murdered very quickly. Because everyone else there, not everybody else, but many of the other people there have been playing it for literally years or weeks at the very least. And so now we're all going to have relatively the base level of skills and the level of knowledge about the world itself and the way that we have to we can behave in it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this. So moving on to the next things you need to know. We've got John Marston, we've got, Arthur Morgan, our protagonist.
John Marston was a protagonist
John
in the last
Marston
game.
is back.
John Marston is back, and he's kind of a dick.
Yeah, young John Marston, but I'm not surprised by that.
He's a persnickety little bastard.
He is, and that's, without spoiling anything, John, we've known for a long time, he's talked about how bad he was, but
yeah,
John and Arthur don't seem to get along so well. He's kind of a young whippersnapper.
That's the thing where it's like it's that notion of like, in the first game, John says like, we're bad men, we killed people we didn't like.
Yeah,
and you see that because like when John in Red Dead Redemption 1, like you hear him say it, and I guess you believe him because he's telling you these things. But like John's a pretty good guy in Red Dead Redemption in the original. And, it's not... I haven't seen John be, like, a heinous monster or anything in my time with Red Dead 2, but, like, I can also see that potential for his headstrong nature get the better of.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like...
These are men of violence. That's something that came down like a hammer on me in the parts of the game I played, was these are not nice people.
Yeah.
They can be polite. They can be civil. They can be kind and charitable. But these are killers.
Yeah. Well, so there was a really great moment in the first actually it was within the first hour or so, really. It was in like the first actual mission you get your hands on the controller with.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil anything, so don't you worry. There's a moment where you meet a woman who you're essentially rescuing her.
Yeah.
And Dutch says this really great thing as he sort of wraps a blanket around her shoulders, and he says, "We're bad men, miss, but we're not them," referring to the dudes that you rescued her from.
Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be something that we see a lot of in this game, is that we're never going to be able to forget that that Arthur as a person does bad things, potentially for bad reasons, and that the group of people that he lives with and you know are his family essentially are comfortable with at best morally gray decisions.
It's moral relativism at its most literal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think one of the other things that's going to be interesting is to see what the sort of abjectly worse people look like in this world,
and whether or not we see much difference by the end of the story.
Yes.
Because I feel like they've been hinted very strongly, this is a tale of degeneration.
Yep.
We think, this is a point I want to make. We talk about everything we need to know. We make a point, because we played Red Dead 1, of thinking we know what happened.
Yeah.
We know how John Marston turned out many years later. Mm-hmm. But the best prequel stories, and there are great prequel stories in literature, have the effect of dropping that bomb on us that completely resets our context for understanding something that happened. There are great stories told that way. I strongly suspect Rockstar is leaning into you think you know. The fact they showed us so much of John leads me to believe that there's very much a you think you know what happens here, but you don't even know.
Yeah.
And even though we see how it ends up, that the path that leads from one to the other is a much more interesting journey than we've imagined.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel very much like, I said in a piece that I wrote for IGN last week where, I thought that I knew how sort of the structure of the game would go based on stuff that I'd pulled from trailers and sort of inclinations that I had based on what they had showed us. And I was really happy to see that once I played through the first 4 or 5 hours of the game that I was pretty wrong about specifically how those would play out.
Isn't being surprised great?
It is. And here's the thing, it's I don't think from a narrative beat standpoint, we know that we're going to see the fracture and fall of the Vanderlyn gang. We know that we're going to see that. We know that we're going to see John and Javier and Bill and Dutch part ways. Definitely not amicably.
Yeah.
But how those moments happen, I'm super curious about. We have that great bit from Arthur's VO in the very first trailer, the first one that had just all of those nature shots, and that ended with him staring at what looked like a burning oil field. Mm-hmm. And he says that thing of, when this is all over, run and you don't look back. Mm-hmm. This is done. This is over. And, I would assume that he's talking to John in that moment. Mm-hmm. But I'm even more curious now after having seen much more of the game to know what brings us to that moment.
Me too.
Especially after seeing the lengths that Arthur will go to, or that you can choose to have him go to, as we were talking about, with those guys on the train, for example. Because if it gets to the point where these people are saying, this is too much, we should probably not do this anymore, after they've literally spent years of their lives robbing, stealing, and killing.
Yeah.
What could that possibly
be?
Like?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that too. And now we're at everything you need to know, everything we want to know. We're at a very different spot. But yeah, we're back to that. All right, so another thing very quickly to emphasize, we've talked about this a lot on the show, but if you haven't been watching over the last few weeks, we want to make sure you understand this. Keeping it concise, this appears to be a new kind of video game. Yes, it's an open world video game. Yes, it has a lot of familiar video gamey mechanics and things in it, but this looks like a world where a lot of the seams that you recognize from video games have been smoothed over and hidden by very carefully crafted systems, a very carefully crafted world, and it's going to feel different than most of what you played in open world before.
I think so. I think that, if you played the original Red Dead Redemption, you'll understand that in that game, which I think kind of offered a lot of clues for open world games to come in the years following, and even still to this day, you have a very binary way of interacting with the world around you. Yeah. You have the option to essentially, point your gun at somebody and do a bad thing, or not point your gun at somebody and maybe do a good thing.
Yeah.
Or say a nice thing and then leave.
Yep.
And those lines are a lot grayer now.
Yep.
You know, with if you're unaware, if you haven't been catching up a whole lot on the new sort of systems and mechanics in the game, basically every NPC that you encounter, whether or not they're central to the story or if they're just some dude riding his horse down a trail, can be interacted with and conversed with pretty deeply.
Yeah, you can dig layer after layer, and this will in turn be affected by your previous relationship with that individual, where they are, the time of day, the activity they're involved in, because they're cycling through all kinds of life, whether they're with a friend or not, a million other, whether you're dirty or not, whether you're covered in blood or not, etc. And that goes layers down. And yet, all that complexity is controlled by an extremely simple interface. First, as you pointed out from the first game, they have carried over. If your gun's out or your gun's not out, that affects how people react.
Yes, immediately they'll just...
If your gun's out, they know you're there for trouble.
Right, or they assume that you're there for trouble.
But you put the gun away, and then L2, left trigger, suddenly creates a situation where you are given contextual face button options.
They're very simple commands, but yet they do very different things depending on the context of the situation that you're in.
And they let you dig. Because go doing one thing can often lead to others.
Exactly. Like, so there was a point in our demo where I just tormented this poor boy.
You mentioned this, the last time you were on.
I really ruined this kid's day. But I tried to walk that back. I tried, after berating this kid pretty mercilessly. You have essentially 2 or 3 buttons whenever you generally interact with an NPC. You have,
once you bring that trigger menu up, you hit
L2, and then you have the option to greet or antagonize them or draw your gun. Greeting is basically your friendly option. So it's howdy, nice horse, and that changes depending on who you're talking to, where you are, what's happening around you. So like
intimidates one too, right?
That's a contextual one.
Oh, contextual one.
So
okay.
The basics of them, I believe, are just greet or antagonize. Okay. But it's all just move.
It digs. Yeah.
Right. So like you'll be able to greet someone, and then once you greet them, if it's a stranger riding a horse with a hunting like a carcass slung over the back, you'll comment and say, hey, that's a good kill. Way to go. Where'd you find that? And maybe they'll tell you where you can go hunt for meat now.
And for all you know, that opens up a new mission because the mission lines are likewise blurred and obscured.
Yeah, I mean, you can, there are clear indicators for when you want to do like, you can toggle the UI to basically tell you like, hey, this is going to be story content over here.
Yeah.
But you can also completely remove the UI and just walk around and like walk up to people and talk to them and see what happens, which I think is super great.
This was something the GameSpot guys talked about. It was that they didn't none of it felt unimportant. It wasn't a matter of a world of story missions and non-story missions.
Exactly.
It was just like everything I'm doing matters. Right now.
In one of the demos, I think it was the UK team saw, they had rescued this guy from a situation, and he, Arthur at the end of that, when he was leaving, had basically said like, hey, don't tell anybody about this. Like, just you go on. I'm glad I saved you, but don't mention this to anyone. And then later they ran into him in town, and the dude's with his friend. He's like, oh, hey, this is that guy I was telling you about. And immediately you're just like, dude, I told you not to say anything.
That's curious. There's a story from the Bible almost exactly like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Jesus helps a dude out, and it's like, please don't tell anybody about this. And then the guy goes back and tells everybody, and he gets so swamped he can't go back into town anymore.
Exactly.
So it reminds me of that. Yeah.
And so, I mean, in that moment, like, I'm curious to know what happens if you pull up that context menu. Like, can you admonish him for being like, I told you not to fucking tell anybody about me. What the hell, man?
But maybe the guy introduces you to opens up something else.
Exactly.
You just never know. Yeah, and that's when we get into the feature stuff. That's what we're going to do here now, John. I didn't prep you for this, but so there's so many features of this game that we're just going to kind of rapid fire, go back and forth, cool feature, and we're not going to go in depth on any of them. Okay. We're just going to go back and forth on cool things until we run out, or until we get tired.
Okay, I'll probably get tired first, to be honest.
So, then I'll call a stop to it. But we talked about that core mechanic and how it affects the design attitude around the game. So now, other things you need to know. First off, possums play dead. Go.
Your guns can get dirty and jam.
Yep. If you shoot a hole through an animal, the hole's actually where you shot it. So if you shoot it with buckshot, more holes in it, you get less money for the hide. Also, carcasses rot.
The same thing goes for people, too, which is just gross. Not necessarily a separate fact, just a fun factoid on top of that.
Horse controls are so much better.
Yeah, you can actually just like ride on the road now. Let's see. Your camp is going to have sort of a morale level, depending on how much money and supplies it has, and you can contribute to that, or you can super not.
There is a fast travel system.
Yep. You can have your own little camps.
Mm-hmm. Gun customization rocks. First off, there's just some stuff that's purely cosmetic and awesome. Second, there's effectual stuff that you can do. And third, if you just don't want to look at the shopping list, you can read the entire gun catalog that's sitting there in front of you.
It's true. You can also go ahead and pick up stuff on all of the shelves, because almost everything at the general store is interactable, and you can just pick it up and buy it right off the shelf, as opposed to having to go through the catalog. Yeah.
You have a satchel. In addition to your other regular kind of ring menu carry thing, you also have a satchel of important items that are quest related or have some other quick reference stuff in them. And it's actually, I wondered if it was going to be superfluous, but I found myself using it quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Your hair grows in real time, and in order to, you can't just immediately grow a beard. You have to wait until your hair grows. Like if you cut into mutton chops and lose this part of the beard, you have to wait the week or so until Arthur's beard fills back in to actually have a full beard again.
Sometimes you take cover and then someone shoots a slow, heavy bullet at you and the cover simply explodes, not because it's like got a bomb inside, but because it's old wood and that's a gun and it blows out next to your head and you're like, oh, wow, this isn't video game cover. I could die here.
Yep. All of the physics on bodies are independently and uniquely rendered dynamically. So when you shoot a guy in the leg, his leg will fall out from under him. He may not die, but he will probably fall over. Yeah.
You and your horse both show your breath in the cold because it's awesome.
Yep. You and your horse can both get dirty. If your horse gets too dirty for too long, it will start to lose its ability to regenerate health.
You have loadouts. You can't carry every weapon all the time. Instead, your horse sort of serves as your riding arsenal.
Yep.
And you take certain loadouts with you when you leave the horse, depending on what you want to do.
Your horse is super important to you. If your horse dies, you will have to get another horse because you've bonded with your horse. You will want to make sure that your horse does not die. To ensure that your horse does not die, you even have the option to tell your horse to run away from combat scenarios. You can get off of it, pull out your guns, and then slap it on the ass and tell it to flee, and it will leave.
Stealth is good. And a lot of fun. The bow is a really fun weapon in those situations. Stealth doesn't feel forced. It feels very natural. And in the stealth situation I played, I had the ability to give commands to squad mates using the same contextual menu that I'd normally use for conversation and control the flow of the battle.
Yeah.
And it worked really well.
Yeah, I liked how that played out, actually. I'm curious to see what that looks like in larger scenarios. Mm-hmm. Speaking of your fellow gang members, we know that in addition to yourself, John, Bill, Javier, and Dutch, the folks that you met from the first game, and Abigail and Jack, Marston as well, Abigail Roberts, I suppose, back then, you can also hang out with almost anybody else in the gang at almost any time, it seems. You can basically say, hey, Lenny, let's go and have a beer in town, and then you and Lenny can go on a fun little adventure, just you and old Lenster. Mm-hmm. Or you can
sort of Dragon Age Origins style, but one-on-one.
Yeah, you can create a party of two.
That's all. I love that.
Or potentially more. We saw missions where you would have Arthur and some of the ladies from camp, Karen and Mary Beth and Tilly, and Uncle hop on a wagon and all ride to town. So ostensibly, you could potentially invite a bunch of folks to go hang out with you. I'm not sure whether or not they'll all join you or if they'll all be able to tag along, but we know at least you can go on adventures with one pal.
You can play competitive dominoes.
And poker.
And fishing.
And five-finger fillet.
And canoeing. Well, actually, I don't know if it's competitive. But
all canoeing is competitive. Come on now. It's you versus nature.
You versus nature, indeed. And blackjack.
And blackjack.
Actually, have we seen poker technically at this point yet? Did you see
Hold'em. We've seen Hold'em.
We have seen Hold'em.
Yeah,
okay, I saw blackjack in the trailer. I couldn't remember if we saw Hold'em.
At least I'm pretty sure it was Hold'em in the trailer.
I know there's blackjack.
Well,
in the
there's
trailer.
blackjack.
There's no way they took Hold'em.
There's blackjack in the latest gameplay demo.
Yeah, that's one of them.
There is Hold'em in the first.
In the first one, you're right. Yep, I remember that. Good, thanks, John.
Of course, thank you. You can hunt for food, which will then make your camp better supplied, which will make the morale better, which will make potentially better ammo supplies and food stores and supplies available to you when you go back to camp to resupply yourself before heading back out into the world.
You can collect cigarette cards.
You can collect cigarette cards.
And I will.
Good. I'm sure I will
so
as well.
Will you,
because
as a guides writer.
I have to. Let's see. We know that this is the largest map that Rockstar's ever created.
You can throw a human body that you've killed into a fire, and the fire will spread slowly from the clothing on its wrist across its body naturally, and finally it'll become a charred husk.
Gross.
Yeah, I totally did that. Yeah.
I'm sure you did. I don't disagree with that. Yeah. There's crafting. Not necessarily in the old sense where you have to go into menu. I don't know how the crafting system works because I didn't get a chance to play with it. But you can carry a bunch of supplies. You can find new recipes out in the world. Like I opened up a box in this little burned out camp, and I found essentially a Molotov recipe. Yeah.
I was involved in a gunfight where several of my allies were fighting alongside me, including John Marston and Bill Williamson. And after that battle, I came to a body, and one of my outlaw teammates had already looted it.
Those dicks.
Yeah, so it wasn't just like everybody was waiting around for me to loot.
Yeah, I believe enemies will do that too. If you shoot their friend, they will try and loot their friend's body as well.
I did not know that.
I think that's a thing that happens. Yeah, I believe that they can also loot bodies. Like if you kill a guy and then kind of forget about what's happening over there, like they may well start stealing shit. You can be the target of robbers and highwaymen. A couple of different times I was riding along and would pass by some other gangsters from this other gang, the O'Driscoll gang. And at first they just kind of stood by on trees, but then they tried to rob me.
Yep.
Those assholes.
You can not necessarily pay the bets that you owe. If you're doing one of the bet type events where you lose a wager, you don't have to give them the money. They may throw down on you, but you have to manually pay people. Yeah, so you can just walk away.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite things. I like that a lot. Yeah. You can get, again, going back to similar with the horse, when you do get filthy dirty, people will change how they react based on that. And depending on what you're dirty with. If you're just muddy, mud will like cake and dry on you, and it'll just kind of be a dirty shirt, and people are going to be like, you're pretty dirty. But you can also end up getting covered in blood. I shot a dude in the middle of the street, and then a little cursor popped up, and it said like, hey, by the way, like if somebody finds a body in the middle of the road, they're going to investigate it and probably call the cops. So I was like, okay, great, and pick him up and put him in the woods. And then when I put him down, I was covered in blood.
Oh, that's awesome. You can switch between first and third person on the fly and play the entire game in first person if you want to. And it's not just a camera change. The game's optimized to be played that way.
Yep. You can also change specific elements about the game, such as head bob mode. When you get on a horse, you can toggle on and off the horse when you're like there. Or I think it might be the head bob for the horse that you can toggle on and off. You can also, I think it's all the time, but it might just be when you're riding. You can toggle on a cinematic camera, much like they had in GTA 5, but instead of having to hold down a button to do it, you can just make it a default camera. And the camera angles on that are really quite lovely.
You can switch between shoulders with the D-pad, which view you see over.
Yep. You can take there are side missions. You can take selfies. There was one mission that we took on where we got tasked with trying to find older gunslingers of the old West, and take photos of them and get information about them, and we were handed a camera, which we immediately just turned around into self-portrait mode. And so there's a limited maybe or fully functional, I'm not sure which, photo mode.
Oh my gosh, I think I got that camera and it never even occurred to me to take my own picture.
You can 100% selfie.
Oh my
it's
gosh,
great. It's this little tiny portable camera about yay big.
I didn't even think about it. Oh, that's so great. Yeah. Couple of questions for you. So we're going to talk about things we don't necessarily know, but you did tell me that one of the very first things you wanted to be able to do was hogtie somebody or rope somebody and pull them behind your horse. Did you try in the demo?
So I tried, but it was with someone who I believe was technically classified as a child.
So you don't know if it works still.
Sure. I know. Well, that's actually not true. In the first 5 hours, I did rope and hogtie somebody.
Okay.
Definitely an adult person, though.
Okay, but did you pull him behind your horse like you wanted to? Did you drag him?
I don't honestly remember. I think I just lassoed him and then tied him up and put him on the back of the horse.
Oh, put him on the back. Okay, because you had mentioned wanting to be able to drag people.
Oh, well, I really wanted to be able to do that in online, because you couldn't do that to people in online in the first Red Dead Redemption, which you still owe me fucking playing with.
We do that. That's
but
true.
I also desperately want to be able to do that to people online. Like, I really hope they can figure out a way to make it fair for the person getting lassoed, like make it a quick time event to untie yourself or whatever. Yeah. I just think that'd be impossibly funny.
As far as I know, I don't know whether or not we can swim. Do you know?
You can, but limitedly.
This breaking news, ladies and gentlemen.
Not breaking news.
We get asked about this all the time. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. This
week.
week.
I didn't swim, but I was told that you can.
Okay.
I don't believe there's like underwater segments like in GTA 5, for example, but I do believe that you have the ability to traverse through water.
Okay.
I don't think you can. I don't think there's going to be a lot of like sub-river exploration.
Okay, not like you're not going to go like scuba diving in the Great Salt Lake.
Yes,
or
but
anything
you will
like
also
that.
not immediately die if you get your boots wet.
There we go. You heard it here first. Well, actually, probably you heard it elsewhere, but
You probably heard it elsewhere because I definitely heard it elsewhere.
okay, that's one of the things that we've gotten asked about a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited that you knew that because I had no
Yeah,
clue.
well, there you go. The
There
more
we
you
go.
know.
All right, the more you know, indeed. And there's a million unanswered questions. All these things here, we're just listing. I'm not going to go down a features list here, but all of this adds up to more than the sum of the parts. I said this with the guys last week. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. It really is a special slice. I think it would be irresponsible of me to render judgment of a game that I have not played
in
a
full, of
whole
course.
lot of. But every impression I see tells me that we're going to see something really special in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of been my takeaway as well for the last couple of weeks is, I don't know if this will be sort of the, like, bar-shifting, momentous gaming occasion that we saw with, say, GTA 3, for example, where it's like, this is how things are done now.
Mm-hmm.
It could be. I don't know.
I think
But
Breath of the Wild seemed to have that power, and I feel like this is going to follow. This is a different take on the Breath of the Wild design philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is a trend that we're seeing in gaming. It's just, again, this is sort of what Rockstar does, where it's like, we're going to do things like that conceptually may have been done previously. In this case, they're doing things that also have not been done that way.
Right.
But they also do things like, the notion of cooking a camp or the notion of providing food for yourself while out in the world in a story-driven open world game. They don't necessarily invent that idea, but they take it and they show you how to do it as best you possibly
That's
fucking
what I
can.
meant when I said similar to Breath of the Wild. I didn't mean to say that they were taking ideas from it. That's
No,
that's
no,
not
no,
what I
no,
meant at
no,
all.
that's
I think
not-
it's a
that's not what
case
I'm
of-
saying.
I
Like-
think that's a case of like parallel evolution. They're very different games.
Yeah, I mean, we've
But
seen a lot of that in the last couple of years.
It is, and it's the same kind of thing where I think it's less is more. It's all the things you don't notice. It's all the layers of abstraction that are being removed.
Exactly, and so
that
that's really
make
the
it
thing,
so
is like,
awesome.
The point that I was going to make is that it may not be a momentous shift in the industry,
Yeah.
but it's definitely something fucking special.
I think it may end up being a momentous shift. I was talking again.
It could be.
on the
It
last
could well
episode with
be.
the GameSpot guys, and we were talking about the difference between Odyssey and this. And Odyssey is, I think the phrase "game ass game" was used.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm playing a
Whereupon
shitload of Odyssey, and I'm loving it. It's a great time.
Games are fun,
But it is very clearly a game to. It is a world to play in.
it's the guy with the big exclamation point over his
Exactly.
head and the janky and this is something that's also in all the trappings are there, but it doesn't feel
One of the
anything
things
like
that Rockstar said to me, I don't know if they said something similar to you, is that they're trying to make this world just as much of a place to live and to like visit as it is a place to play a game in. And I think that that's sort of the really special thing is that there are
but
a lot
not
of games
in the
that have
boring
said
PlayStation home way.
there are a lot of games that have said that before. That we want our worlds to be like the living, breathing open world is one of my fucking most hated cliches in writing, and I've certainly used it. I'm not, completely
you
guilt free,
hate the cliche.
but it's one of those oldest, tropes that you can say now in writing about games, and yet I find myself not wanting to use it in coverage, but just feeling like this is finally that promise being delivered on.
Excellent. This excites me so much now.
Right?
So we're going to call that just about everything you need to know about Red Dead.
Yeah, I
Redemption
would say
2.
just about. I don't think look, we didn't touch on every single thing because
we'd be here for 20 hours.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good precis. I think it's a good summary. As for us here at Red Dead Radio, what you need to know about us, a couple of questions you may have. Will we be reviewing the game? Yes, I'll review Red Dead Redemption.
Ooh,
2.
I'm fancy.
Yes.
I'm gonna review Red Dead Redemption
I'm
2.
gonna review it. When will I review it? That depends on when I get it.
It's gonna be a big.
it'll be
it's gonna be a big game.
Yeah, it's a big game, and you'll get the review when I'm done. First review will be spoiler free.
Good for you.
And then later on, We will play through the game together, talk about the stories, and because this is a water cooler game. This is going to be the meat of this podcast. All this build up, it's nothing compared to the joy of sitting around and talking about what happened.
Hey.
So yeah, we'll be telling those stories back and forth, interacting with you. Mail at reddeadradio.com. That's mail at reddeadradio.com. We know you got a lot of questions. We're going to try to answer some of those next week. We've got a mailbox full of questions, mailbag full of questions.
Next week just all questions?
I think so. Yeah, I think next week we'll be answering all the questions.
Because the week after that, the game is out.
The game is out. So we're going to answer your questions next week as well as we can. Get ready for that final hype. And then eventually we'll do a spoiler cast finally. Not finally. I want to be clear because around then... online launches. Guess what? Red Dead Radio is going to be around a while.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes, it will.
And we're going to be here with you. We thank you for watching and listening. Again, this is my job. I really like having this job. In order to keep having this job, I need money. And as Matthew Broderick said in the seminal classic Godzilla 1998, that's where you come in. But if you want to support what I do here at Red Dead Radio, you can go to reddeadradio.com, and our Patreon there has a lot of pretty nifty bonuses, exclusive content, as well as updates on what's going on here, some polls for things that we do, etc., and entire episodes of a podcast I make called Am I Boring You Yet? That you can only find there. So...
I can't believe you just fucking quoted Nick Totopoulos.
You know what? Sometimes that is the only redeeming quality.
I can't believe I just got his fucking name right.
I like money. I have a little. I'd like to have more. That's where you come in. And then the Raptors ice skated.
They were 100% Raptors. I was about to say they weren't, but that's a fucking lie. They were fucking Raptors.
Yeah, wow.
Baby Godzillas are just tiny Raptors.
John Ryan, what do you got to plug?
Well, if this was not, in fact, everything you need to know about Red Dead Redemption 2, please, by all means, go over and check out all of the good work, I think it's good work at least, that I've been doing over on IGN, as well as the rest of our stellar crew who have actually definitely demonstrably be doing good work. Ryan McCaffrey, Tina Meany, our UK team, Alex Simmons, Daniel Krupa, Joe Screbbles, they've all seen the game, played the game. They've done a ton of great coverage on it. So if you do still have any lingering questions from this rambling nonsense that we just put up, go over to IGN.com for a much more curated and streamlined version.
Man, I love that you brought up Joey Scribbs. I feel like in another universe, Johnny D, Jonathan Dornbush of IGN, and Joey Scribbs are buddy cops. Like, I want that to happen so bad.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Johnny D and Joey Scribbs fighting crime.
Yep, and I like the idea that Sam's their captain. It's just because he has a mustache.
It's because of the mustache.
It's because of the mustache.
Yeah, it's like,
but yeah, and then once Red Dead Redemption 2 does come out, by all means come on back to IGN yet again, because we will have the fullest strategy guide complete with as many secrets, cheats, and all the good stuff that you're going to have a hard time finding that it's okay to ask for help on.
John and I worked together.
Can.
John and I worked together in the GTA 5 wiki.
Oh god,
and it was rad.
PTSD.
We had a really great time together doing that. But IGN does make great guides. They have a staff of ridiculously dedicated writers.
We try real hard.
And that's the place to go when you're looking for those secrets. When you're trying to find that 27th cigarette card. Hey, I got a chance to visit GameScoop. Had its 500th episode. IGN's GameScoop.
That's right. We did do that.
Yeah, and that's up right now. You can check that out. I'm on there along with a lot of other folks. Brian Altano, Tina Meany was there, Fran Mirabella, and of course Sam Claiborne, Justin Davis, and Damon Hatfield, the Omega Cops themselves. 500 episodes, like 12 years of GameScoop.
Madness.
That's that. I think, along with Retronauts, that's got to make it like the longest running video game podcast.
I think it might.
I don't know any.
Honestly.
I don't know when it goes longer.
I'm kind of mad they didn't go the Troy McClure route and wait until they got to like 527.
Yeah.
And do like the 527th episode spectacular.
I love that. Dan Stapleton at IGN loved to talk about how his sincere hope is that one day Half-Life 3 will just appear on Steam.
We all hope that, Dan.
Just with no fanfare, no warning. Just one day, everybody logs into Steam to see what deals of the day are, and it's Half-Life 2 for $59.95, or Half-Life 3
the
$59.95.
Valve offices just like dimensionally shift into non-existence, and there was just nothing there. It was just an empty
just all
lot
gone.
The whole
It was
time.
all imagined the whole time. Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sitting through this grease fire. We'll see you next week. If you'll subscribe, we'd appreciate it, and don't forget we're on iTunes, Android, Apple, etc. as well. Leave a comment and say hi. All right, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Hey, shout out to Patreon producers Tom Bach, Stuart Ferguson, and Jonathan, whose support makes this show possible.